A man presses his palms against cold stone and screams into a silence that swallows every sound. No guard answers. No voice returns. For 3 straight years, he has not seen another human face. Not once. When they finally unlock his cell, he does not walk out. He crawls. He mutters words that mean nothing, clutching a Bible he can no longer read, because his mind has already left him behind. This was not a torture chamber, built by tyrants in some forgotten empire. This was an American prison, built by reformers, who believed they were doing something good. They called their method a cure. History calls it something else entirely. A machine engineered to dismantle the human mind, one silent day at a time. Behind these walls, men vanished without ever leaving their cells. Some spoke to walls that did not answer. Some clawed at doors that would never open. Some simply stopped being people at all. The records that survived this place are buried in archives most people will never read. Forbidden knowledge hiding in plain sight, this place still stands today. Tourists walk its crumbling corridors, snapping photographs, unaware of what those stones absorbed. But you are about to learn what really happened inside. And once you know, you will never look at silence the same way again. The year is 1829. In Philadelphia, a group of Quaker reformers unveil a radical idea. Instead of whipping prisoners into submission, why not force them into total isolation and let their own conscience do the punishing? They name it the Pennsylvania system. They name the prison Eastern State Penitentiary. From the outside, it looks like a Gothic fortress. Towering stone walls, medieval turrets, a building designed to intimidate before a single crime is even committed. But the true horror is hidden inside. Every single prisoner is placed in solitary confinement, alone, for the entire length of their sentence. No conversation, no labor alongside others, no glimpse of another human being. When guards move prisoners between cells, they cover their heads with hoods so no inmate can even see the face of the man beside him. Each cell becomes its own sealed universe. A small skylight above is called the Eye of God, meant to remind the prisoner that heaven is always watching. Meals slide through a slot in the door. Exercise happens alone, in a private stone yard, surrounded by walls too high to see over. The reformers believed isolation would produce penitence, true remorse, true rehabilitation. Dignitaries and world leaders travel from across the globe to study this humane new system. Guards wore soft slippers so their footsteps would not break the silence. The architecture itself was built to feel like a cathedral of punishment. Vaulted ceilings, filtered light, an atmosphere closer to a church than a cell block. But behind the polished reports and proud tours, something else is happening to the men trapped inside. Something the architects never anticipated and never wanted the public to see. Within months, wardens began recording something they never expected. Prisoners were losing their minds. Men clawed the walls until their fingernails tore away. Some sat frozen for days, staring at nothing, refusing to eat, refusing to speak, refusing to move. Guards began writing reports of inmates who screamed at invisible figures standing in the B corner of an empty cell. Charles Dickens visited Eastern State in 1842, expecting to praise this celebrated new system of reform. Instead, he walked away horrified. He described the isolation as a slow torture of the mind, one he considered far worse than any physical lashing, because it left no visible scars, only broken men who no longer recognize themselves. And here is the moment that changes everything you think you know. This humane system, the one built by reformers who believed they were ending cruelty, was, according to later psychiatric analysis, inducing symptoms identical to acute psychosis, total sensory deprivation, total silence, and total human disconnection were quietly manufacturing the very madness the prison claimed to cure. Escape was almost unthinkable. The walls stood 30 feet high. The cell doors were solid iron, sealed inside stone corridors, built specifically so sound could never travel. Even if a man somehow broke free of his cell, he would emerge into a labyrinth of identical hallways, disoriented, starved of human contact for so long that his own instincts had begun to fail him. Some prisoners survived by whispering through drainage pipes just to hear another voice. Others invented imaginary companions, holding entire conversations with people who were never there. Many never recovered, carrying the damage long after their sentence ended, if they were ever released at all. Prison records describe men who forgot how to speak in full sentences after years without tone conversation. Doctors of the era had no name for what they witnessed. They only knew the silence itself was unmaking these men, piece by piece. By the late 1800s, the truth had become impossible to bury. Reports of mental breakdowns, suicides, and self-mutilation reached the public. Reformers who once championed isolation now faced accusations of creating the exact cruelty they swore to eliminate. Other prisons abandoned the Pennsylvania system, adopting congregate models where inmates worked alongside one another. Eastern State slowly phased out strict solitary confinement, though the practice lingered for decades. The men who suffered inside received no compensation, no apology, no acknowledgement. Many carried permanent psychological scars, unable to reintegrate into a world that had moved on without them. Some were quietly transferred to asylums, their suffering reclassified, never truly addressed. Eastern State Penitentiary finally closed in 1971, left to decay for over a decade, before it reopened as a historic site. Today, visitors walk through its crumbling cell blocks as a museum, unaware that these same walls once absorbed the sound of men losing themselves entirely. But the story matters far beyond one prison. Solitary confinement did not vanish with Eastern State. It continues today, inside modern facilities across the world, still administered on thousands of inmates, despite mounting psychiatric evidence of the exact same damage documented nearly 2 centuries ago. The same warning signs, the same fractured minds, the same silence. This is why this dark chapter still matters. It exposes an uncomfortable truth, that good intentions, unchecked by evidence, can manufacture suffering just as devastating as deliberate cruelty, and that history has a habit of repeating its darkest experiments, simply wearing a more modern disguise. Human rights organizations today cite Eastern State as an early warning ignored for generations. The lesson was written into stone in 1829, yet it took nearly 200 years for the world to seriously question whether isolating a human mind could ever count as justice. Every civilization builds its own version of this experiment, a place where silence becomes a weapon, and good intentions curdle into something unrecognizable. Eastern State Penitentiary was not built by monsters. It was built by people who believed they were saving souls, and that should terrify you more than any villain ever could. Power, left unquestioned, always finds new ways to disguise itself as progress. And silence, the very thing meant to heal these men, became the very thing that destroyed them. Unraveling minds that could never be fully put back together, buried under decades of forbidden, unspoken shame. So we have to ask ourselves, how many modern systems, built with good intentions today, are quietly repeating the same mistake behind closed doors? The walls still stand in Philadelphia, silent witnesses to an experiment that went unimaginably wrong. And somewhere beneath the tourist photographs and guided tours, the echo of that silence remains. If this story disturbed you as much as it disturbed us to uncover it, tell us in the comments what part shook you the most. And subscribe, because history's darkest chapters deserve to be remembered, not repeated.